The Nazi plan to bomb New York. When the Second World War expanded beyond Europe, a new power rose on the other side of the Atlantic, the United States. It was a nation filled with factories, money, manpower, and deep industrial strength. Its cities glowed with lights even during the darkest days of war. And at the center of its identity stood New York, the city of skyscrapers, the city of the Statue of Liberty, the symbol of hope, wealth, and modern power. To Adolf Hitler, this city represented everything he hated, everything he wanted to break. But the Atlantic Ocean was a massive barrier. Germany's aircraft were powerful, but they were designed for the war in Europe, not for journeys across oceans. The idea of striking America directly seemed impossible. Yet inside the German High Command, the impossible was exactly what they wanted. They were convinced that a single devastating strike on American soil could shake the entire United States, cause panic, and perhaps weaken its will to continue the war. This dream, or perhaps obsession, began to form into a secret concept whispered inside German war rooms. They called it simply the Amerika bomber. The concept was simple to describe, but extremely difficult to execute. They wanted a bomber powerful enough to take off from Europe, fly across the vast Atlantic Ocean, reach New York City, release its bombs, and then return home. It sounded like something from science fiction, but Germany had engineers who believed they could turn dreams into steel and fire. And so work began, quietly, secretly, away from the front lines. In German laboratories and design workshops, new aircraft designs began to appear. Engineers stretched their pencils across giant sheets of paper, sketching wings wider than anything that had ever been built before. Engines were tested. Fuel tanks were expanded. Scientists studied the winds, the air currents, and the distance. Every step of the plan relied on precision. And in those days, Germany still had some of the most brilliant technical minds in the world. One of the proposed bombers was said to be larger than anything that had flown before, a giant of the skies with wings so long they seemed almost unnatural. It would rise into the air like a floating city, slowly gathering height before crossing the ocean. Another concept was more futuristic. A flying wing, smooth and curved, with no tail and no familiar shape. It looked like something from another era, almost like the stealth aircraft that would appear many decades later. If it had been completed, it might have been the most advanced military aircraft of its time. While the engineers worked, military strategists debated which targets in New York would be chosen. They imagined the bomber arriving early in the morning, when the city was waking, when newspapers were being delivered, and shop owners were unlocking doors. They imagined the sirens beginning to sound as people looked up into the sky. They imagined panic and chaos in Manhattan streets. They imagined headlines that would echo across the world. For Hitler, it wasn't about destroying the city completely. It was about fear, about shock, about sending a message that the war was no longer far away. The war would come to America's doorstep. However, reality inside Germany was slowly changing. Factories were being bombed by Allied aircraft, fuel was becoming scarce, trains and supply lines were breaking. The war was turning against the Nazis. Every day that passed, the dream of the Amerika bomber grew more distant. But desperation is a powerful force, and in desperation, even the most extreme plans were considered. Some of the Nazi officers suggested a mission that would have been almost suicidal. A one-way flight. The bomber would take off from Europe, cross the ocean, drop its deadly cargo on New York, and then continue flying until its fuel ran out. The crew would parachute into the ocean, hoping that a German submarine would be waiting to pick them up. It would have been a mission with almost no chance of survival. But this was the nature of the war in its final years. Hope was fading, logic was breaking, and the impossible was constantly being discussed. There were whispers, too, of test flights that might have reached the edge of North America. Some stories claim that a bomber crossed the Atlantic and reached Canadian skies before silently turning back. Nothing was officially proven. The war was full of secrets, full of rumors, and full of stories that blurred the line between truth and legend. But ultimately, the plan to bomb New York never became reality. The bombers remained prototypes. The flying wing remained unfinished. The war moved faster than the engineers could. Germany collapsed before the dream could be built. And the city of New York continued to rise, untouched, its skyline unbroken. Yet, the story remains. A chilling reminder of how the world was once balanced on the edge of